Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Jenna. I am a Canadian who has been living here in Germany since 2014, and I share all of my culture shocks and my experiences as an international here in Germany on my YouTube channel. But if you're looking to move to Germany yourself and need some more information, you can also check out all the information that I have over on lifeingermany.com as well. Today, I'd like to introduce a special guest for you guys, and that is John from Smoover. I wanted to talk about moving, like the actual physical move, like bringing your stuff from point A to point B, whether that's from one apartment in Germany to another apartment, or perhaps from another country here on over to Germany. Because my move is coming up and I realized, I have so many questions regarding the actual move itself and questions that you as internationals probably also have too, or even as local Germans. There are questions I have like, how much is it really? Is it something that I can afford? Do you actually tip a mover? What is tipping etiquette like? I don't know. Do they pack the boxes themselves? What about having to look into if they're insured or not? There are so many different legal aspects and other questions regarding money and payment that I have. And we're going to have John here on the call answer all of these questions for me and for you guys too.
Thanks for having me. My name's John. I'm the owner of a moving company that is based in Germany called Smoover Moving. The idea behind it was basically to make expats' lives a little bit easier when moving house. As I'm sure most of you know, quite a complicated business, doubly complicated if you're not actually from that country. So I started out in the moving business when I was living in America, in New York. I wanted a job that would allow me to see a bit of the city as well, as earn a bit of money, and sort of fell into moving. But after a year or so, picked up a lot of skills in the moving game. When I came back to Europe and moved to Germany, I realized that there wasn't really any service specifically for expats. If you wanted to contact a moving company, you had to do it all in German. It was a little bit old-fashioned. You had to pick up the telephone. What we're trying to do at Smoover Moving is bring that process online and help specifically expats, Germans as well, but specifically expats.
I could definitely attest to that even like comparing the prices of moving companies and whatnot, like having to do that all in German is something I didn't even want to think about when I first got here. Of course, it's obvious that there's some big differences between doing the move actually on your own or hiring a moving company. But from your expert opinion, what is the biggest difference, or the pros and cons perhaps to both?
When you're hiring professionals, I suppose the reason you do it, or the number one reason, is just simply the effort. For most people, moving isn't fun. It depends how much you've got to move, of course. If it's a few boxes, probably you can handle it. But if you've got a whole household, then you're going to be spending all day doing this. I guess the other big difference about hiring a moving company between doing it yourself is just the professionalism. There are still some tricks of the trade that pro movers who have moved thousands of households, disassembled thousands of beds or wardrobes, the chances are they're going to do a better job than you, who's maybe doing this for the first or second time. Efficiency and speed is a big reason to hire movers. And perhaps the other one would be just peace of mind. If you're doing it yourself, probably if you break it, you can't go to your house insurance, or maybe you can, depending on what house insurance you have. But most moving companies are fully insured, so if something gets damaged, it's easy to claim it back.
So if somebody did decide to actually go the route of hiring a moving company, what would the first steps be? What does the process actually look like?
Number one, you've got to make a list of everything and send it to different moving companies. What we do is we have a form where you can tick off stuff. But also, if you've got more than your average amount of stuff, so you're moving a whole apartment, filling out a form can really take quite a long time. So we also have an option where you can just pick up your smartphone and take a video on that and send it to us via WhatsApp, and then we'll transcribe that whole list. And then within that, of course, they can identify any unusual items. Just off the top of my head, something like a piano is always interesting come moving day, because these things are really heavy, really bulky. If you're having to carry them up and down stairs, you want to be prepared for that. You don't want to turn up and someone says, oh, okay, well, you've done all the boxes, now here's my piano. It's important also to tell your moving team if you need any disassembly or reassembly of stuff. You need to let them know to bring the right tools for one, to set aside some extra time for disassembling and reassembling them. It's something that you can always save money on, is to do all the disassembly and reassembly yourself. It just depends how much you like it. Within that, there are lots of other services that moving companies can offer, things like floor protection. If you've got nice wooden floors, you don't want these to get scratched, so you should notify the company to put something down. You might want boxes delivered prior to moving if you don't want to have to go to the Bauhaus, or if you don't want to spend time on Amazon looking for boxes, you can just tell the moving company, hey, send us this stuff beforehand. And if you're really not feeling like doing anything, you can even get the team to pack all the boxes for you. You should always let the moving team know what floor it's on. Likewise, if you've got an elevator, it's a good idea to take a picture of the elevator, because in Germany, you get some very narrow elevators that are barely fit for purpose. They fit 2 people perhaps, but they're not going to fit your big furniture. And then lastly, as you already said, the parking situation is super important. The moving team is not going to be happy if they have to walk 100 meters to your front door. So if you can't ensure parking, it's best to get something called a Haltverbot zone, no parking zone.
Is that something that you would help with?
Yeah, we can help with that. If you want to do it yourself, then usually it's a matter of calling up the local government. As any expat will know, if you want to get anything done, you have to go through local administration. So usually the local city government has an office which deals with things like no parking zones and setting this up. There are some online services as well, depending on what city you're in. So you might want to Google it, because it's actually not just a matter of getting the no parking zone, it's then got to be set up and taken away as well. But yeah, we offer this service where we do everything for you. We order it, we set it up, we take it away.
And I guess, there's so much that you really need to communicate. So I think it's really cool that you're able to then kind of like pick and choose your own personalized package, because if you like packing boxes, then you can do it yourself. And if you want to do something else or don't want to do something, then you always have that option, which is really cool. And the fact that like technology now, where you could just like call in from your phone and show you guys, this is how big my elevator is and this is what my bed looks like, and then have you guys do it all for them is really, really neat. It's hard to pick a moving company. Of course, like it's great that I've been able to meet you guys, and I know that this can be like a great go-to resource for internationals. But how does someone then go about picking the right moving company? Like, is there a wrong way to pick them, or are there moving companies that you should stay away from, or like what do you have to look for?
It depends a lot on your standards, really. I would always stay away just offering basically a man with a van for a couple of hours. These are like the lowest quality ones. As in anything, it's sort of a marketing exercise with moving companies. They're all trying to attract your attention. Some might have a flashy website. Some might be advertising in local newspapers. But at the end of the day, you're only really going to be able to make a decision based on quality with the sort of the interaction that you get with the moving company, how quickly they respond to your requests. I suppose now with expats particularly, they're looking for someone who speaks a bit of English. And then you want to look carefully at the offer that they send you to make sure that they are a registered company, that they offer a full invoice. Good luck trying to get your money back from some damaged furniture with an unregistered company. They're just going to take the money in cash and disappear. That's the last you'll hear of them. Perhaps you can look at whether they're members of any various organizations like Association of International Movers or these other various German ones that you have. Usually they've got a little sticker on their website.
That's basically what you're able to help with, right? Like you have multiple different partners, right? Where you like would know, okay, this person wants to move to Düsseldorf or Munich or Berlin. And then you have like the different teams there. Like, is that how it would work?
So we work with teams all over Germany and even all over Europe. And each one of these teams has to meet this minimum sort of requirement for quality.
So you've got your own checklist, which is good.
Not every moving company will have the same level of quality. So unfortunately, it's something you don't really find out until the day of the move. The best thing to do is also to look for reviews. We rely a lot on our reviews. And if you type in Smoover to Google, you'll see that we're very proud of our nearly 5-star rating, 4.9.
Not bad. What would the biggest difference be, logistically speaking, if you were just moving cities versus moving across the country or across the world? Sorry.
Germany is a big country, so if you start in the south of Germany and go north, you can still be moving, at 600, 700 kilometers. Or you could be on the Swiss border and just moving a few kilometers, but actually crossing outside of EU territory. So that really complicates things. Generally, I would say for international moves within the EU, it's not terribly difficult. With things like Brexit recently, that has complicated things a lot for our UK customers because they suddenly realise that you have to fill out a load more forms, paperwork, visas, etc. The same with Switzerland. Again, a big logistical challenge when, for example, if you're moving to Canada or USA or Australia, you're going to have to put your stuff in a boat, which adds another transport method and more complications because then you need to get a shipping container, you need to get all your stuff to the port. Again, a lot of customs, a lot of paperwork.
So it's quite drastic. I guess my assumption is right that when you're just moving within the borders of Germany, even other EU countries, that it can be much, much easier than that big international move. I think like doing an international move, I wouldn't even think to like put a finger on anything. I'd just be like, you do it all for me because I hate customs. I hate dealing with all of that. The biggest question that a lot of people have, and I know it's the hardest question to answer because it varies. It depends. I know that. So let's say, theoretically speaking, there was somebody who wanted to move from Berlin to Munich and they were English speaking, so they would require your services, for example. How expensive is it really? I think for a lot of people, their automatic thought is just like, it's out of my price range. Like they don't even look into it. How affordable is it really to hire a moving company? I know you mentioned there's different package options, so maybe if you wanted to pack your boxes for yourself, like what would a cost like that typically be?
Again, no move is the same, as you said. No two moves are going to be the same because you've got such variable costs involved. If you're looking maybe at a typical one-bedroom apartment in Berlin to a one-bedroom apartment in Munich, it can be anywhere from around about 800 to 1,500 euros to move, let's say, 15 to 20 cubic meters of items. Again, this is just a very rough ballpark figure because we could spend a while discussing what floor you're going to, elevator, additional services. Ultimately, the only way you're going to know a price is by asking companies and asking around. And they can throw out very different prices because they're all offering different services. Something you've also got to watch out for is whether they're quoting you with tax or not. Some quote netto, some quote brutto. If you do it yourself, then you've also actually got a lot of costs to consider, particularly for those longer moves, because you have to hire a truck, you have to pay the gas for that, you have to buy some material to protect your furniture, boxes. And this can quickly add up. Unless you're a Superman, you're going to want some friends or family to help you. Maybe you can pay them in beer or pizza. But you're going to be needing to spend a few hours of not just your time, but other people's time. And once you add all that up, you can see that it probably makes sense to actually hire a company to do this and take some stress and effort out from you.
There really is. Like, there's so much more to it than you realize, like including, buying the boxes, getting the protective gear if you need it, like hiring the truck, doing all of this different stuff. And now I have to go through it. I didn't even think about tipping etiquette in regards to movers, because I know that, tipping in general is very, very different across the world. So we tip a lot more generously in Canada than we do over here in Germany. But do people tip movers here, or how does that work in Germany?
As you said, tipping culture in Canada or US is very different from in Europe. I was pleasantly surprised when I was moving. Some people, just for doing a few hours work, would give you $100 tip. But that's because the wages there are much lower for this sort of manual or lower skilled jobs. It's not so much the case in Europe and specifically Germany, where tipping culture is not as strong. However, I would always say if someone is working hard, they're looking after your stuff, if they manage to not break anything, if they're pleasant, polite, they make your move easy, why not give them a tip? I would say anywhere from like 20 euros to 50 euros.
I also think the way that I think about it, at least, is that when you move out of an apartment in Germany, a lot of us tend to forget that we actually still have this Kaution, so the 3 months deposit that we put down. Sometimes it's just first and last month's rent. Usually for me, it was 3 months rent. So that adds up. That's a lot of money that you get back that sometimes you forget about. So that's kind of what I've thought about, is realize, I didn't even realize, but we'll get that back. As long as the apartment is in order before we leave. But that's money that you could easily put into moving. And I think that's a good way to look at it, rather than saying, it might be out of my budget, I can't afford it, but think you still have all that money you probably didn't even realize you still had. So that's a good tip when looking at it.
I know in Germany a lot of landlords require a fresh coat of paint or it to be perfectly cleaned. But there are also other services that we offer in addition to moving. So it might not be something that immediately crosses your mind, but once you see your empty flat, you realize that you haven't cleaned behind the sofa for 2 years.
Yeah, that's good to know that you're able to offer those types of services as well. I didn't even think about it. And right now, I'm totally worried about actually having to find one, because I know like in these COVID times, a lot of painters, for example, or cleaners are totally booked out. And then I just don't even know the first place to look, because it's last on your list, on your priority list, right? You got to get everything moved and whatnot. But awesome. I think I picked your brain enough, and I think those are all questions that I definitely had personally for my big move coming up soon, but I think a lot of others also had very similar questions. But of course, if anybody else has more questions for John or for myself, you can always leave them in the comment section below. Otherwise, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you for having me.
John is actually also one of our experts over on our Life in Germany program, where you get exclusive access to a Facebook group of multiple different experts that you can simply just tag and ask a question to. So if you have more questions, you can always join our welcome program. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Vielen, vielen lieben Dank und wie immer, bis später.